first series of the 2025 season is in the books as the Mets take one of three in Houston as we welcome you to episode number 63 of the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, as always, Corne Hogeveen. 3 games in the books, like I said. Some maybe positives, maybe some surprise positives, I should say, from this first 3 games. Also some maybe negatives from this series in Houston, but some people might need to calm down because it's just 3 of 162. And if I remember correctly, last season, the New York Mets did not get off to a sparkling start as well. So um, maybe people just need to take a step back for a second.
No, they're totally right. 3 games in the series. The Miami Marlins are going to win in the National League East. That's clear because they had at first place. The Braves will finish last. It's definitely ending the way like it's all in the standings right now. And yeah, we can just call it quits. Write down this final in the National League East and be done with it.
Oh, so you can say we've hit rock bottom already. This is
The rock bottom.
rock
It's
bottom. It's
not
just
this
as
team.
just as bad as that series against the Dodgers in May last year. No, it's on the same
This
level.
team. Yes, this team sucks. We all know it already. No, obviously I'm joking. It's crazy how many people, even after the first game, when Soto struck out to end the game, you all saw some negative post about Soto, who was, I think, on base 3 times in that game. So I wouldn't say it was a bad game for Soto. Um, it's crazy that this happens every year, but on the other end, we've been of this team now for a long time. We have been on social media now for a long time. So it's not uncommon. And obviously, this team isn't done. Let's take the good with a grain of salt, but also let's take the bad with a grain of salt. We will see how this year it will go. But we definitely, in my opinion, saw some goods about things that maybe is the biggest question marks and some bads about a part of this team we know is going to be fine.
Yeah, I think the thing that was most disappointing overall from this weekend is that our player of the series predictions maybe weren't necessarily we didn't necessarily hit the nail on the head with those.
Well, Jose Siri,
I mean, do we want to count Jose Siri because he probably had the most electrifying play of the series? I mean, do we want to count that? I mean, that was my guy, so if you want to give me a check mark on that, I'm totally fine with that. But
I'll give you a check mark on that. He played 1 game. He uh, he created a run in a game where we scored just once. So
yeah.
uh, it's Jose Siri. I mean, he didn't get a home run, but he also played just 1 game, so that's difficult. I think he did spark something, although the defensive play might. I think it's a long shot that but it took us away from a chance to get that runner at home. So that was a little bit of a meh,
Meh.
but but he did provide the only run in that Saturday game. So I will give it to you.
Yeah. So as we look at this series overall, like I said at the top, there were some obviously some positives, some negatives from the series against the Astros. But looking at it as a whole, what was the thing that stuck out to you the most from these first 3 games in Houston?
Yeah, we're a pitching podcast. We always say that we are a pitching podcast, and I think the bullpen was obviously tremendous, starting with Reed Garrett, who in the win on Friday came in when Tyler McGill left, had some runners on, and he was tremendous getting out that Diaz. For everybody who said that Diaz velo was down and that's a concern, he showed immediately that the regular season is a different story for him. He was in the upper 90s. He was nasty, so that was great to see. But everybody in the bullpen came from the first game on Thursday, where Brosabon pitched great. Max Krennic came in yesterday or 2 days ago. It's already um, with a tough spot and got out of it. So I think this bullpen is pretty deep, and I think this opening series showed that this bullpen is pretty deep, and that's a great sign.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the pitching path as well, but I'm going to go with the starters from the last 2 games of that series with Tyler McGill really carrying over how he finished the 2024 season was really good in that start against the Astros, and did run into some trouble kind of halfway through, but limited the damage. And Griffin Canning on Saturday, I mean, that game was definitely not on Griffin Canning for why the Mets lost. That's a tough loss for Griffin to take. So I think those two guys stood out because with Mania being out and Frankie Montas being out, there was some questions about maybe the back end of the Mets rotation. I know these guys started the first, two of the first three games, but really, when you look at it overall, it's like you talked about, it was in our chat, it was more that they just want to play the right-handers against the right-handed heavy Astros lineup. But these guys were kind of battling for rotation spots in spring training all through camp, and so the first starts of the season were very, very good. Um, I think the thing that's interesting with Griffin Canyon is they know they kept popping it up on the screen during his outing was his slider usage. He was using it over half the time. I mean, damn near 60% of the time. So we talk about getting in the pitching lab with Jeremy Hefner. That maybe it's just circumstance. Maybe it's just maybe Astros batters, like they were talking about, minus Paredes and uh, Christian Walker, tend to be aggressive. So maybe it was just, hey, they're going to be hunting fastballs. Let's just hit him with off speed stuff. But I thought that was really interesting, the fact that he was using his slider almost 60% of the time in that outing.
Yeah, we have seen in spring training that the usage of Griffin Canning's pitches will be different. We know with Griffin Canning that his fastball isn't the best. I think it's get hit pretty hard. So the Mets are trying to change. I would say they are trying to hide his fastball and use it to surprise hitters a little bit more than make it his bread and butter pitch. We saw that against the Astros, like you said, used the slider a lot. I thought his changeup was pretty good, but like you said, he didn't face a lot of lefties, so it's more of a pitch that you can use to the lefties. But the slider was tremendous. Only the Pena home run was on a hanging slider, but that happens. And he took care of it, and it was only a home run in 6 out of the 30 ballparks in Major League Baseball. So I could have got away with it in any other situation, but not in that ballpark. So yeah, he did. He was tremendous. Also, McGill was very good. I thought his command was very good. I think that's a big point for McGill. When his command is good, he's gonna be fine, and it showed. He had great command of all of his pitches. So and he also did that in spring. So it's definitely, and he did that at the end of last year. So definitely starting to be a longer term successful period of time in the majors for McGill. So hopefully that stay. But right now I'm confident that it will. And I just want to touch on my guy Clay Holmes. I think it was obvious that his command of his sinker wasn't there. And I think although they put Holmes in against the right-handed heavy lineup in the Astros, I think it hurt him a little bit that he didn't face those lefties. I think he worked hard on that cutter and the kick change, which both were good pitches in spring training. And in this outing, we almost exclusively saw the sinker, slider, sweeper, which to me, maybe if I'm wrong, but to me it thought about, well, that weren't necessarily the pitches he really worked on in the spring training. I think overall he wanted to feel the other pitches. So now all of a sudden he had to go back to the 3 pitches he had being a reliever, and maybe those pitches were a little bit more rusty. I don't know if there's a truth to that, but um, to me, yeah, he was rusty, especially with the sinker, missed up a lot. So in the end, I think it will be fine, but it made me think that maybe it wasn't necessarily in this situation the best spot for Clay Holmes because of the lack of his new pitches that he could throw.
Yeah, I think the excuse me, I think the issue with Holmes in that outing, and really, I guess you could say in that first game overall for the Mets was a self-inflicted wounds, 4 walks and 4 and 2/3 innings pitch. So obviously you're giving the Astros free passes, and like I told you in our chat, I don't think the Astros really manufactured those 3 runs. I think it was more a product of the Mets, like I said, with the walks or the errant throw by Luis Angel Acuna that played them a run. It was almost like the Mets kind of gifted them those runs. Now, unfortunately for the Mets, and basically for most of this series, they couldn't generate much offensively. So sometimes things like that tend to loom large when you're not able to produce a whole lot at the plate. They only scored 5 runs in these 3 games. So as we transition from the pitching to the offense, um, let's talk about Juan Soto because in that first game of the series, he came up as the go ahead run in the ninth inning, and uh, Hader got him on a slider that he was not expecting there. He even said afterwards he was looking fastball, and they obviously tipped his cap to one of the best closers in the game. He responds the next night by launching a ball that went 390 feet off the facing of the second deck. Um, as part of a 3-1 Mets win on Friday, and then picked up another base hit on Saturday. It was actually, if memory serves me correctly, it was just the only hit in the game for the New York Mets. So, no, Soto coming in or after his first series, uh, he went 3 for 9 at the plate as the home run, 2 RBIs. Did have his traditional Soto walks. He walked 4 times in this series. So I would say pretty overall good start to Juan Soto's Mets tenure.
Yeah, it's what we're gonna expect. He gets some base, he gets his walks, and that's what does mostly. I mean, he had 3 hits and 4 walks. Uh, he also provides some power. Right now, it's unfortunate that the Mets other batters around him didn't have a good series. So it was a one-man show offensively most of the time. I think Luis Torrens had a good series, but that was it on the offensive side. Um, so yeah, it's not great right now. But on the other hand, you know that the other hitters aren't going to struggle like this in every series. So if Juan Soto can be Juan Soto for the rest of the year, he's going to score a lot of runs. He's going to drive in a lot of runs. Just that the other batters right now didn't do it. Overall, I'm definitely not concerned about this offense. This offense is just too good to do this for a full season, and I think also kudos to the Astros pitching staff. I mean, I said last week that Hunter Brown is my Cy Young. It's not for no reason that I believe that he's the Cy Young. I think he's really good. So the Mets did some damage against him. The Mets also faced from Valdez, who if my memory serves me right, he always gives the Mets a little bit of fits. So he did that again, and then they followed up getting good at bats against Abreu, who is a very tough reliever, and Hader also was a very tough reliever. So the first, I said to you in the chat, the first game didn't bother me as much because of those things. Holmes didn't have his best stuff. The defense made some mistakes. Also a good play by Acuna in that. Oh no, that was Saturday uh, or Friday, excuse me. But overall, that was self-inflicted, like you said, and they got their opportunities. I think the Saturday game was a type of game where the offense just wasn't there. But I think in the other 2 games, it wasn't as bad as people made it believe it was.
Yeah, those particularly that Thursday game, the first game of the season. Once Valdez came out of the game, then like you said, the Mets started to manufacture some stuff with some base runners, and unfortunately, we were only able to plate the 1 run in that game. Uh, but Alonso in the series, just to because obviously these are the big bats around Soto, 1 for 9. Brandon Nimmo was 2 for 11. Mark Vientos 1 for 11. Lindor has didn't pick up a hit in the series, so um, it's still going to be a scary 1 through 5. It's going to be one of the better ones in baseball. It's just like we've seen in years past, and they even say it, on the broadcast as well that pitchers tend to be ahead of hitters when it comes to the beginning of the season. And really, these. I know you can get your reps on the backfields and stuff like that, but traditionally, when it comes to the hitters, particularly early in spring training, they play maybe about 5 innings and they call it a day. So maybe you're getting what, two at bats a game. You really don't start ramping up your in-game workload. I'm going to consider like the spring training games like the real workload. You don't really ramp that up until the last couple weeks of camp and whatnot. So um, I don't think it's a surprise to see maybe that just like last year, the pitching, was pretty solid to start the beginning of the season, and it took a little bit for the offense to get going. And I'm going to expect the same thing again this year.
Yeah, but they will be fine. This lineup is good enough to get over this. It's also one series against a solid ball club. It's time to do better in this against the National League East winning Miami Marlins right now with the upcoming series. So it's time to shut them down. And I mean, we also don't necessarily do well at the road ballpark from the Astros. I don't know how it's called now. It was Minute Maid Park. It's not Minute Maid Park anymore. So
No,
uh, all Minute Maid Park just sounds so cool. It's one of the better ballpark names we have, and now it's not. So I don't. I'm just gonna keep calling it Minute Maid Park.
yeah.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about then. But it's not a ballpark where the Mets usually do well. So get that out of the way. Face a good team. Now face a team that you should beat. And I have confidence that the Mets will do that.
Yeah, they still got the train in Houston though, so at least they got that. They kept that at least. That's pretty cool. And like you talked about it earlier with Griffin Canning in that ballpark, um, was the victim of the Crawford box. Is the Jeremy Pena home run that got into the first row, but and you alluded to it. They said on the broadcast too, it's a home run in 6 of the 32 major league ballparks. So a little unlucky there for Griffin Canning, but. Uh, Overall, don't be too worried. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. This is just the first series of the season against, like what you said, is a very good Astros team, despite losing Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman and Ryan Presley in the bullpen. They they filled those spots pretty well. Figuring Christian Walker and Isan Perez are solid baseball players, and they're really high on Cam Smith too, who came over in the Kyle Tucker trade. So Houston, despite losing guys or maybe losing their core from those championship ball clubs, are still going to be a tough team to face. In the American League West and just in the league in general. So, um, you know, don't read too much into how these 3 games went.
Nope.
Now, if this was like maybe like August, September, then maybe it's a little bit more of a different story. Maybe.
Then I mean, we didn't get swept or anything. We
No.
lost. We lost 2-1 on the road against a solid ball club. It depends in August if you should be worried about it. Then it depends on how you stand in the standings. It depends on who you had. It's not like the Mets had the Mets went for a way in this series to get the best matchups. But I think if you look at the matchup side by side, it wasn't necessarily in our favor when it comes to pitching. We missed a couple of guys too. I mean, obviously, Manaya is a big miss for us. But we also didn't pitch our top of the rotation guys, like you said. We have Peterson against the Marlins. We have Senga against the Marlins, who on paper are probably the 2 best starters right now, if you don't count Sean Manaya. I think Manaya is our one. So it's logical that we aren't on the pitching side, aren't at our best. It sucks that the pitching did held up well and the offense wasn't there. But like you said, there are reasoning for it. It's also different to hit in a major league ballpark than in a spring training ballpark with the back walls and everything where you see some different things. I know that the Astros changed the color of that back wall for that exact same reason. So it's always different. And that's what the Astros also had to deal with, but it's not like the Astros light the world on fire with their offense. I think until that Saturday game, the Pena hit was the first extra base hit they had. So the Mets pitching helped them quiet uh, pretty well. It were three close games, so it's not like we were outplayed in any of those games. We had our chances. Maybe the offense was outplayed. Maybe in the Saturday game, it was still a one-run game, so it could went a lot different. Maybe a hit here and there or a home run here and there. So although we are 1-2, to me it's definitely not a horrible series. I think the last year was a lot more horrible when we started 0-5 and at home against a couple of teams. I mean, the Tigers at that point and the Brewers. Although the Brewers eventually won the National League Central, I think the matchup we had right there were a lot more in our favor. The matchup weren't necessarily in our favor. We got one game out of Houston, and now it's time to take care of the Marlins.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So, before we get to the minor league segment of all of this, well, because it's going to be a very quick minor league, let's talk about some young players though that were on the opening day roster for the Mets, particularly the two guys playing second base, Luis Angel Acuna and Brett Beatty. Both didn't do much at the plate, but Acuna did have a tremendous at bat against Josh Hader in the Thursday game. But both had some good plays in the field. Acuna obviously had the throwing error in the first game as well, but um, I guess maybe we'll probably keep the focus more on Brett Beatty here since he's the guy transitioning to the middle of the infield. Defensively, how did Brett look to you? I know we talked about this a little bit in our last episode where he looked you saying he was looking a little bit more comfortable with more reps there, but now like we were alluding to, the regular season's a little different than playing games at Clover Park in Port St. Lucie. So how did Brett Beatty in the field look to you?
I think he made all the plays, turned a couple of double plays, so and it didn't have necessarily a very difficult play, but he did everything he could. I think Acuna, besides that throw, made a good play in the series too. So um, defensively, I think they both look fine. Great at bat by Acuna, and even I see a lot of hate on Brad Beatty, but it's the same for all the other guys. It's the first series. Brad Beatty didn't have a good series, but so did all the other guys. And I know Brad Beatty didn't have any success in the major leagues so far, but we are talking about a very early season. No, I wouldn't even call it a struggle. I think Brad Beatty's over 5 now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in that series against
have a
Houston.
three, have a 3-4 day, and you're already at 3 for 9. So
Yeah, yeah. He easily turn it around with one good game.
yeah,
Um, maybe it'll be tonight against the Miami Marlins. I think we would. I think we have to acknowledge that Hayden Sanger getting in some games. Obviously, very cool to see a real like tough spot at first major league at bat, bases loaded against Josh Hader. Like, here you go, kid. Um, fouled off a couple of tough pitches. Obviously, eventually struck out, but came in defensively as well late in the game as a defensive replacement. So, congrats to Hayden Sanger. I would imagine maybe he gets a start in this Marlins series. I think playing maybe starting him against the Astros is a little bit different than starting him against the Marlins. So maybe Hayden gets a game in this series sometime. So that would be cool to see. But congrats to him on officially being a Major League Baseball player after grinding all those years in the minor leagues and particularly, these last couple in Syracuse. So with that being said, how did Syracuse do over the weekend as we have the first edition of the minor league minute and with only a couple of games played? Maybe this will actually just be a minute.
well, gonna try, but I do have some information there. I watched partly of the first game for Syracuse, and I watched the full game yesterday. Show that I'm a pretty darn good Mets fan if I'm watching the AAA team get clobbered 12-0 or something like that in, in the Saturday game. I kept watching. So the first game opening day, played Tidwell, looked great, hit 98 on the gun, and showed some nasty sliders. Also got one of the better prospects in the Red Sox system. Michael Mayer on a nasty changeup. He went 5, allowed just 1 run on 1 hit with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts. The Syracuse Mets won that game 4-3. Joey Meneses went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles. My boy Luke Ritter also went 3 for 4, and Jackson Reeds homered. Game 2, like I said, a whole different story. Our top prospect, Brendan Sprode on the mound. He wasn't good. Threw his sweeper a lot. It had good movement, but this command just wasn't there. Missed on the inside part on left-handed hitters a lot of times. His fastball was a little bit shocking to me because he didn't throw it a lot, and 2, he didn't provide a lot of swing and miss. So to me, that's a little bit of it reminded me a little bit of a Reed Garrett fastball, which he hides in his major league outings. Also a high velo fastball, but didn't provide as great numbers. So hopefully you can adjust to that, because the AAA numbers weren't necessarily great last year. Like I said, overall his control wasn't there. I didn't write down the total. I think he went 2+, allowed 4 or 5 runs with 3 walks. So Sprode wasn't good. The Syracuse offense was awful too. Fun, but I do say it was fun that our former friend Michael Fulmer made his return to the mound since 2023, and he was tremendous. Roman Quinn, by the way, if you are interested about other teams, Roman Anthony, I should say. If you're interested about other prospects around the league, he's going to be a very good one. He homered twice against the Syracuse Mets and also hit a line drive. Opposite field fly out off the bat against Daniel Nunez, who did pitch well. It was good to see that he returned. But overall, like I said, the pitcher Justin Hagerman got covered. A lot of pitchers on the Syracuse Mets side were babooned, or however you call it. It was not a good Syracuse Mets game.
They got lit up.
Yes, that's the better word. Thank you. Got lit up.
Yeah. You talk about those Sox prospects. Not that we're Red Sox podcast, but I mean, they already got 1 in the big leagues right now. They got 2 in AAA.
They're going to be very, very good.
Yeah,
it's the reason why we both have them as the AL East champions.
Yeah, well, it's a fan base that kind of chased Chaim Bloom out of Boston, and now they're starting to reap the benefits of Chaim Bloom's drafting. So, I don't know. I know Boston sports fans, and they're
probably better than me.
New York fans might not like to hear this, but the fan bases are extremely similar when it comes to patience. And, I know they don't like being compared to Boston, and Boston doesn't like being compared to New York, but when it comes to the fan base's patience, they're the same. It's very, very low. I know. But as the Mets go ahead.
Probably part of being a baseball fan that you have to do that or something. I don't know.
Maybe. but the New York Mets are looking to, I don't know, I want to say get back on track. That's not the right way. Looking to string together some wins against the Miami Marlins here, and as is their final road series of this opening week of the season before they head back to New York on Friday to play the Toronto Blue Jays at Citi Field. As we now go to our players of the series predictions. I get the pitcher this week. You get the batter. The pitcher gets to go first because we are a pitching podcast. And this is, I mean, do I even have to say it? Should I even say it? If you know me, you know who I am picking for player of the series when it comes to pitchers. It's David Peterson. I mean, come on. Let's get, who did you think I was going to pick?
Obviously, Dave Peterson. Obviously, David.
You thought I was going to pick Reed Garrett?
Oh, he was great.
He was. Credit where credit is due. He came in a big spot and got outs when he needed to. So credit to Reed Garrett there. Credit to the bullpen overall that we gave him their flowers earlier. But yes, the David Peterson fanatic is going with David Peterson to have a solid start in this series against the Miami Marlins?
Like I said, shocking. I'm probably not gonna go with a shocking name for people who know me. I think a guy who got a ton of hate already in this when he went over 5 in the series. Definitely wasn't the biggest bad thing that we saw on the offense, but unfortunately, people say that it was only his fault. Apparently, Brad Beatty. We faced 3 right-handed starters, so he will get his playing time. We face Quantrill, Sandy Alcantara, and Connor Gillespie. Or is it Connor Gillespie? I don't know if it's Connor Gillespie. It's a guy whose name is Gillespie. All right, good. So three right-handed pitchers. Besides Alcantara, I think the Mets can definitely handle the other 2. And I believe that Brad Beatty will be part of some good offensive days for the New York Mets coming up.
Love the pick. Love the pick. Obviously, we're big Brett Beatty fans, so we want him to do very, very well. You kind of alluded to who's starting for the Marlins in this series, but your pitching matchups in this 3-game series down in Miami tonight it is David Peterson against Cal Quantrill, making his first start for the Miami Marlins. And then tomorrow night, tonight is 6:40 Eastern time first pitch. Same thing tomorrow night when Kodai Senga goes up against Sandy Alcantara. So that should be fun to see Sandy back on the mound. I mean, you have to respect good pitching. So Sandy is one of the best ones, and
Nice
already
matchup too.
already on the trade block, no doubt about that.
Yeah,
And then the
nice
series,
matchup too against.
yeah,
Sorry, excuse me, but
no, you're good.
Senga obviously is a very good pitcher when healthy.
Yeah,
Both guys coming off years that were kind of lost, so it's a very interesting matchup. Sorry, I came in there, but
no,
wanted to put that off my
no,
chest.
you want to get that out there, get that out into the open. Totally get that.
Yes.
Well, the series ends on Wednesday. It's a 4:40 first pitch Eastern time. It's going to be Clay Holmes making his second start of the season, going up against Connor Gillespie. Not that Connor Gillespie. Hopefully, this Connor Gillespie doesn't break Mets fans' hearts, but he also pitches for the Marlins, and the Marlins tend to break Mets fans' hearts, so maybe he will. That is your pitching matchup on Wednesday mid-afternoon, I guess we'll call it. At least for the people here in the United States, anyway, on the Eastern Seaboard. I know it's a little different for you, but that is your pitching matchup for this series against the Miami Marlins. So I think we pretty much touched on everything we want to today. I think it was a good episode. Now I just need to think of a title for this episode, but with my creative skill set, I'm sure I'll be able to come up with something.
National Marlins win the East.
Right. Yes. This is the Mets. The Mets are facing the best team in the National League East right now.
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a tough series. It's always a tough series, but a series we should win at least. Let me say it like that.
Well, we shall see how these next 3 games play out as we will wrap things up here on episode number 63 of the Queen's Connection. Corne, thank you for joining us as always, and enjoy these next couple of days. Hopefully the Mets can get some wins down in South Beach.
Yeah, let's go, Mets. I bet we will.
Bet we will. All right. This has been the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen, Spotify or YouTube. And make sure to follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, X, Elon's website, whatever you call it. Just search the Queen's Connection. Give us a like and a follow. Also should shout out our winner of the first ticket giveaway of the season, Adam V on Twitter. Congratulations, but do not worry if you missed out. We have another one coming up very, very soon, so be on the lookout for that. So thanks again for listening, and enjoy this 3-game series against the Miami Marlins.